Good evening, everyone. It's Necro Thursday, and that can only mean that it's time for the Necromaniacs Horror Podcast. How's it going, Mike?
It is going well. As Mr. Hill just said, you're listening to Necromaniacs Podcast, coming to you every single Thursday. It is mid-April. My allergies are raging. I've got the watery eyes, but you know what? It's worth it because, you know, I like spring. Spring means summer is around the corner, Mike.
Yeah, man. It felt like summer already happened actually last week, man. It was like pretty
Yes, for a few
just
days.
out of nowhere. It was like hot, but now it's a little more seasonal, I think.
Yeah, a little more normal. But yeah, like these allergies, like right now, like I'm near the window, my desk, and it's like, oh yeah, spring is here. Got to take some over the counter stuff, but I like the good weather, man. I mean, winter was mild as hell, but I'm glad spring has arrived. How you doing, Mike? How you feeling?
Doing all right. It's stuff's going on in my life right now. But
yeah.
but that's
just how it goes.
That's just how it goes sometimes, But I'm making the best out of it.
Well, I want to tell you, I usually listen to every episode that I'm not on, of course, as a good co-host. But I did not listen to more than the first 10, 15 minutes of the Knock at the Cabin episode because I have not seen Knock at the Cabin.
Yeah, no, that's probably a good move because we really spoil the hell out of it. Yeah.
Right. So that's on the docket for this week for sure. Because I do want to see it. I'm kind of excited to see it. And so I avoided the episode.
It's also probably good to mention that as we record this is the eve of the release of the new Evil Dead movie.
Yes.
Yeah. So the next couple of days, we're a couple of days away from that movie being out in the theaters, and I am going to see it. However, I think I have kind of low expectations for it.
Yeah, judging by some of our prior conversations and some of you and Jeff's prior conversations, it sounds like you do have low expectations. I am a little more enthusiastic about it. Many moons ago, Mike and I saw the remake from, I guess, 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I actually enjoyed that. However, I have not watched that perhaps in about 9 years. And I may just give that a watch just to, just for shits and giggles. I know this new one is its own thing, and that may or may not harken back to the OG like that remake did at that little moment towards the end or whatever. But I do feel like all of these are a part of one big Evil Dead universe. They have their own stories going on and maybe their own timelines, but I do feel like it's a part of one big Evil Dead stew. Would you agree?
Possibly. I mean, I think, maybe the whole Deadites thing, is like part of like a storyline, that might connect everything.
Right.
That's kind of a cool idea. I mean,
and this one, who knows, there may be something at the end or something hidden in it, that goes, oh, okay, the one in the early 80s actually happened. Or I like when that kind of shit happens, right?
Well, I really enjoyed the TV show, though. Remember that from a few years ago?
That was fun. I never finished it, but every time I watched it, I enjoyed it. So maybe I should also check that out once again as well.
Yeah, I was really into it. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. So a lot of people are talking about it. Some people really love the trailers, and then some people don't love the trailers. I mean, I do think it is going to do pretty well, though, Mike, as far as financially.
Yeah, horror is hot right now, and it's a slick new movie. It looks great. People are going to go see it for sure. I agree with that. Yeah, I might watch it. I might go this weekend, actually. I'm pretty sure I'm going to go this weekend by myself,
Yeah. And then today, we're taping this on a Tuesday, the 18th of April, to break the wall or whatever. We learned that a movie that we championed here on the podcast is getting remade in America. The Dutch film that was one of those ones that we all kind of didn't see for our best of list for last year, or did Jeff manage to see it? My memory's a little fuzzy.
Though I saw it last year. Actually, Jackie was the one who recommended it. Jackie Smith of the Into the Necrosphere podcast. And
Right.
And I checked it out under his recommendation, and I was like, man, what an uncomfortable movie, you know?
And the movie we are talking about, kids, is Speak No Evil. It's quite the roughie, as they say. It's a roughie. And yeah, it's getting an American remake with star James McAvoy is going to be one of the roles. You know, a part of me when I found this out was like, this is a little soon. But then I was reminded that, you know, the whole let the right one in, let me in thing was pretty much, you know, right on top of each other as well, Mike.
Yeah, but you know what, man? I just wish people would read subtitles, you know? It's
Right, that's my
yeah.
right.
I mean, the original movie has like such a European feel to it, you know? It's like it has, you know, the Scandinavian people are very very you know, they're polite, and the Dutch guy is like real like this kind of libertine, you know what I mean? It's just like it's very European, the story, and I'm afraid that if they try to tell it like in American backdrop, it's not going to work as well, you know?
Yeah, it was a Danish family and a Dutch family, and listeners, they spoke in English in that movie. It was not even, I mean,
oh, that's right.
There were subs.
Yeah, that's right. It was in English, so it wasn't even subtitled.
Yes, there were subs when they spoke in their native tongues. That was the only time there were subs. But largely, the movie is in English. But you know what, man? Now this just hit me. I'm starting to wonder, like, I really hope they don't make it like a whole, you know, left-wing family and a right-wing family nonsense, because, of course, this is America. And, you know, I mean, I'm hoping that there's way more meat on the bone with this, you know, because the idea in the original of mixing the two different European cultures, I thought was really cool. But if this is an American movie, I don't know. Now I'm a little nervous.
It's going to have like a coastal elite and some redneck from like Tennessee or
right.
something like that.
And like, I don't know. It's like, that's been done to death. But if they are sticking to the script, that aspect has certainly not been done to death. The horrificness of the film, right?
No, yeah, that movie was like its own thing, in my opinion.
But who knows? It's all speculation. Yeah, it'll probably be out next year or late this year, or who the hell knows. But yeah, Speak No Evil is getting remade.
I'm not. I don't back it, man. Honestly.
We'll see. James McAvoy's cool, you know.
Yeah, he's cool. Yeah, but the idea I'm not behind though.
Right. We got to do the plugs, Mike Hill.
That's right, we do, man. We can't forget our family. You know, the family.
We can't forget the family. We cannot. We are part of a group, a gang, so to speak, a crew of fellow podcasters, the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse, coming at you nearly every day of the week. And if you're supporting us, you should be supporting them. And on Monday, who do we got on Monday, Mike?
On Monday, we kick things off with Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666, which is a horror podcast like this one. But he focuses on interviews, and he's talking to a bunch of different people. He had Mick Garris on. Did you know that, Mike?
Yes. That's really cool, man.
That was tremendous. That was a tremendous episode. So that's the kind of thing he does. He talks to people, and he does a great job. And so also we have been all guests on each other's shows, so you never know when we're going to be on the show too.
That is true. Coming at you on Tuesday, Into the Necrosphere, your one-stop shop for all things extreme metal, right, Mike?
That is 100% correct. And the only other metal podcast I listen to is Big Will's podcast, The Heavy Hole, coming out of Long Island, New York. And
oh, nice.
Yeah, that's a good one, man. You should check that one out too.
You know, it's funny. A listener asked me if I ever found what I was looking for, like a death metal podcast that was suiting of my case, and I told him I did not. So who knows? I mean, listeners, please recommend to me good death metal podcasts that perhaps skew a bit with some of the older bands, or maybe do deep dives on some old records. I like that kind of shit. But yeah, that is coming to you every Tuesday into the Necrosphere. Coming at you on Wednesday, we have the mothership, so to speak, Mike Hill's very own Everything Went Black podcast. Right, Mike?
Yes, and that is a very eclectic kind of thing. Not a whole lot of metal on there because I figure Jackie's got that covered. But it's a lot of different stuff, man. A lot of variety of different musicians, filmmakers, everything. Josh Barnett was on, the MMA fighter, former UFC champion. A bunch of you never know what you're going to get from week to week. So it's, that's the kind of thing,
That is coming at you every Wednesday. On Thursday, while you're listening to it right now, it is the Necromaniacs podcast, the greatest horror podcast in the world. 9 years running, ladies and gentlemen. Coming at you on Friday, Mike. What do we got on Friday?
We have your brother's podcast, John Draper.
Yes.
And Break the Apocalypse, which is
very funny, always topical, sometimes controversial. Break the Apocalypse podcast. Check it out. I would say out of our crew, it is probably the most different from what the rest of the crew is. But you know what? We like it just like that. You got to mix it up, Mike, right?
I agree.
Yeah. On Saturday, go see a show, go to a restaurant, go to the park, get outside, read a book maybe. But on Sunday, make sure you're back for the final member of the crew, Carl Hikaro's own Soul Knox podcast, Mike.
That's one that covers all sorts of dark and esoteric stuff. And right now, Carl and I are doing a collaboration called Darkness Weaves. And the first episode was on Soul Knox. And it's we're going to be covering the work of Carl Edward Wagner, the horror and dark fantasy writer, who is kind of obscure and should be way more popular than he is. So we're going to be going through short story collections and all that sort of stuff.
Very cool. That's awesome. It's funny. One of the prior podcasts I had mentioned that I got Mary San Giovanni's Alien book.
Yeah.
And apparently it sold so well that it is now out of print. Like they're that whole first run of it, Mike, is basically gone.
Damn.
So yeah, that Brian Keane mentioned that in his newsletter. That he said if you're finding it now, you're very lucky because it's it is going to get reprinted, but it'll take a little bit for that. So that was really nice to hear, man, because I like when people that I appreciate and respect and who come from the underground do well, Mike.
I picked that up on Kindle, so I've definitely lost out on having a hard copy of that one.
Yeah, no, it'll come back at some point, but it is good to hear that whole initial run, like the physical copies, is sold out, which is awesome. As far as other shit you're checking out, Mike, anything, movies, books, TV?
Well, as far as I haven't really watched anything since last week, man. As far as movies or anything, but I'll tell you what I did do is I just showed up the Blue Underground Dead and Buried Blu-ray.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, which kind of fits in with what we're talking about tonight. And I just been looking for a new place to live. I'm going to be moving to a different town in New Jersey, and I spent some time up in Jersey City at the Grove Street pop-up. It was like a record.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, like a record convention. A mutual friend of ours, Jen Jones, was DJing, and I bought $200 worth of records. So yeah, it was cool.
Hey, I saw your haul on Instagram, and you got some cool shit, man.
Oh yeah. It's a harbinger of, I think, my potential time in that city. I think it's going to be a lot of fun in Jersey City. So yeah, that's good.
You know what? That is a cool way to look at it, Mike. That's actually a very cool way to look at it. I like that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm moving out away from the hinterlands out here into a more urban environment.
All right. So yeah, in the past week, Stella and I, we We were going to go to Morbid Angel, but we did not go. That was like on Tuesday. But we did go on Wednesday to see Cerebral Rot and Dead Congregation at St. Vitus.
Yeah, man.
Which was awesome. One of those weeknight sold out shows at Vitus. It's funny, like we noticed like the vibe at these shows, it was like Saturday on Wednesday, like everybody's like drinking and having fun, and it's like, oh shit, I work tomorrow. But you're not really thinking about that as you're having your good time and listening to the music. But they have a lot of those shows because, I mean, hey, bands are touring and sometimes the tour routing, every night can't be Friday or Saturday. So this show was on a Wednesday. And it was a good one, man. I hadn't seen Dead Congregation since you and I saw them 10 years ago or 11 years ago, whenever that was, at the Martyrdom Festival. Cerebral Rot was awesome. I caught them last year at Vitus. It was a good time.
I saw Dead Congregation another time when they played in New York at that spot in Brooklyn.
They played with Ruins of Beaver-Ass.
Yep. Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yep. And
you know what, man?
I wanted a new record by them.
Dude, I believe that's going to happen.
Okay, it's been a while. It's been a while since they put out an album, man. I need a new
very long time.
Record. Yeah.
They played Dead Congregation played one new song, and of course it was awesome. So, there's some other shows coming up on the horizon, like Spectral Wound is playing at the end of May at Vitus, and in early May there's the really cool Blood Incantation Immolation Obituary tour coming to town.
Oh yeah.
So we'll be going to that. We got tickets for Love and Rockets at King's Theater, which should be fun. And two other King's Theater shows is Emperor and Sisters of Mercy. So I'll be at that club quite a bit in the coming months. Huh?
Yeah, I got Emperor tickets, so that's going to be good.
Yeah, this is the year of like mucho shows and touring, huh?
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on, which is cool, and I'm going to a lot of it. Some of it I'm missing, but
Yeah, you can't go to everything. And just a little pluggity plug. Also saw our buddies Black Anvil with Insomnium and Enslaved a week or so ago. Last week, actually. That was fucking awesome. At Irving Plaza. They're on the road right now across the USA. So if you can, go see Black Anvil with Enslaved. And tell Paul that Mike and Mike said hello.
Yeah,
right, Mike?
That's right. And Rafe, too.
And Rafe, yes. Of course. Support Black Anvil. Friends of the show, Mike, right?
Yeah.
Friends of the show.
And former Tombs guitar player, Matt Medeiros, is playing second guitar for Black Anvil right now.
Yeah, he did a great job, man.
He's a tremendous player, man. It's perfect.
I saw the first show. New York was the first date and his first gig with them. So, yeah, that was awesome. We could talk about our voicemail and our phone number that is seeing some action, listeners, right, Mike?
That's right. That number is 908-913-0782. And this week we got Patrick from New Haven. And, he's a fan, listener.
Fan of the show, listener, yeah.
Yeah.
What's up, guys? This is Patrick from near New Haven, Connecticut. Longtime listener, big fan of the show. Really one of the only horror podcasts I listen to. I just had a couple of recommendations. I'm not sure if you guys... I had a theme going here, a dead theme, but I couldn't think of a third one that had the word dead in it. So, a movie called Dead Man's Shoes with Patty Considine. I forget when it came out, early 2000s or something like that. In 2010, I don't know. Maybe you've heard of it. It's kind of horror-ish, thriller, suspense, whatever. It's pretty good. I don't know if I'd give it like a, 3.5, 4, something like that. Something you might be interested in. To continue with my Dead theme, a band called Dead Horse out of Pasadena, Texas. Not the recently kind of reformed half-ass version of Dead Horse, but the original. They only put out 2 albums with the original singer-songwriter Michael Haga It's pretty good shit, in my opinion. And like I said, I couldn't think of another third dead. I wanted to recommend a book. It's off the top of my head, but I know Mike Hill, I think you're not really into true crime, but this one reads almost more like a fucking horror novel or something. It's called Murder Machine, and it's about the Roy DeMeo crew. It's like they were associated with the Gambino crime family. It was back in I don't know, I think 70s and 80s when they were doing all this stuff, but they're responsible for, I don't know, hundreds of murders apparently, and just brutal murders, and just going like the details. It's pretty frightening shit in my opinion. But check it out or don't, whatever. Enjoy the podcast, and I look forward to hearing some more. Take care, guys.
Have you seen Dead Man's Shoes?
No, and to be perfectly honest, I have not even heard of the film.
It's one of those like hard ass British crime movies. You know what I mean? Where I haven't seen it yet, but people that are into that style of film have recommended this one as being a great movie to see. So I actually, after Patrick recommended this, I ordered the Blu-ray. So the Blu-ray should be here in a couple of days because I've been meaning to watch it for months, and now this gave me motivation to check it out. And
okay, is it not streaming, or you just wanted the hard copy anyway?
I wanted the hard copy because this had like commentary, and also my buddy Selden Hunt, the artist Selden Hunt. Some of you guys might know him.
I know that name. Yes,
Australia. He highly recommended this movie. He gave me a hard recommendation on it. So this was extra motivation to buy the Blu-ray. So that's coming soon.
Sick. That's cool. My Blu-ray buying has taken quite a hit as of lately because I've just been watching things on streaming. But there are some things I would like to pick up. There's a huge Kino Lorber sale going on still for like another day or two that I may dip my toes into that because they have a lot of cool shit spanning the decades and spanning the genres. So there's always like a Blue Underground sale going on. Rennie Starkweather alerted us to one, and I was like, oh shit. I think physical products are taking a bit of a hit, currently. So I feel like you'll see more sales just to move the product,
That's what motivated me to get the Dead and Buried Blu-rays. That's that sale that Rennie told us about.
Yeah. And of course, Blue Underground is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And it could tie us into tonight because, of course, Blue Underground has this film available on Blu-ray currently. And that movie is none other than Death Dream from one of our favorite directors, Mr. Bob Clark. Right, Mike?
Yes. And also Mike from Telford, Pennsylvania. He also gave this a hard recommendation for us to check out and to do an episode on. And so we can also thank Mike for pointing us in the direction of this film, even though I believe you and I have been talking about doing this for a while, actually.
We actually have privately, as they say. And, I want to pretty much see all of Bob Clark's movies that I have not seen yet. I may skip Baby Geniuses and Baby Geniuses 2. However, I will see some of the other ones I have not seen, Yeah, we talked about him quite a bit on our episode about Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, which I really hope all of you listeners checked out, and I think some of you did. But, to give a bit of a summation of this guy's career again, I mean, the diversity, Mike, there's the word, real diversity in his film canon is something you don't really see. He starts out with a movie called She-Man, into Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, into executive producing Deranged, which is a great horror movie. And then he directs in the same year Black Christmas and the movie we're talking about tonight, Death Dream, in 1974. He does Breaking Point, Murder by Decree, which is a thriller mystery. And then he gets into the teen sex craze of the early 80s, teen sex comedy craze, of course, starring the Porky's franchise, directing Porky's 1 and 2. And again, diversity. In the same year he directs Porky's 2, he directs Christmas Story. Isn't that hilarious?
Very different films.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you imagine if they tried to make Porky's now, or if they tried to screen Porky's in this environment that we live in right now?
God, would be forget it. They would burn down the theater.
Yeah, it'd be riots.
But you know what though? Things can be cyclical, right? And there could very well be a return of teen sex movies, like we did see in the late '90s. Remember, with the American Pie and all those rip-offs of American Pie. Now people see that movie and shriek in horror, but the real shrieks of horror, you could say, began in the early '80s with these films, and some of these films are excellent, some of them are not. Porky's is definitely one of the good ones, at least the first one is. And he does other things. He goes into the Baby Genius stuff. He does this, quirky movie Popcorn from 1991, which I think is a good movie. And right around the time of the remake craze, he is about to be involved in Black Christmas, and there's rumors about him doing some other things. And sadly, he loses his life to a drunk driver, him and his son. So a very tragic ending. He dies on April 4th, 2007. And it really sucks because watching all these horror movies, and then you learn that he was kind of about to make his return to horror, you think about what could have been, right?
Yeah, it's really sad, definitely.
So, there's our little Bob Clark 101. Didn't want to do a full dive again because we did talk about it on the Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things episode that you should check out, listeners. But tonight is about Death Dream, which is basically his fourth film from 1974. Let's see. Here's some 101. Of course, it was directed by Mr. Bob Clark. Screenplay by his buddy Alan Ormsby, who worked with him on Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. Produced by Bob Clark. Cinematography by Jack McGowan. Had some creepy music by a Carl Zitra, because of course it's a creepy 70s movie. Release date of August 30th, 1974. 88 minutes, shot in beautiful Florida, USA, with a budget of $300,000. The cast, we've got John Marley as Charles Brooks, Lynn Carlin as Christine Brooks, Richard Backus as Andy Brooks, Henderson Forsyth as Doc Allman, Anya Ormsby as Kathy Brooks. Of course, Anya played that cool role in Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. Jane Daly as Joanne, also in Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. Mike, did you recognize her?
Of course, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Also, Jack Walsh John Marley was from The Godfather.
Yes, that's right.
He was the horsehead guy, Jack Walsh.
The director. Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah, he's the dad. Charles Brooks is Andy's dad. The movie's basically about Andy. Of course, we'll get into that. But yeah, John Marley, the director who has this really great line about the women he bangs or something, and some derogatory Italian comments, of course. But we all know our Godfather, so we won't have to get into that. Shot in Brooksville, Florida, in the fall of 1972. If you're paying attention to Bob Clark's career, he also shot Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things in Florida and the Porky's films in Florida, Mike.
Florida man.
Yeah, it's the move. It's the Bob Clark move.
Yeah. Interesting thing about Richard Backus, who plays the star in this. And first of all, and we'll get into his strong performance, but he was only in 2 movies. Most of his career was in soap operas. Yes, I learned that the other day doing a little deep dive to see that his IMDb for acting is 2 movies. This movie in 1974, his first film, and a movie called The First Deadly Sin from 1980, which was a crime thriller which had Frank Sinatra in it and Faye Dunaway. How about that? Wow. I've never seen that movie.
Yeah, the first deadly sin. Interesting. But yeah, like you said, most of his career was spent in soap operas. Um, he was Lovers and Friends, Another World. He was nominated for a Daytime Emmy in 1981. Different kind of career, One Life to Live. Did some writing, different career. Man is still alive today at 78, Michael.
Oh, good for him.
Good for him. Good for him. Of course, like all great movies, this movie had a few other titles. One of them being Dead of Night, right? And I believe there's a third title of this movie. At the very beginning, oh man, I'm trying to think if I wrote it down.
The Night
I
Walker.
almost feel like, yes, Night Walker, yes. But most people do know this movie as Death Dream. But I wonder what when they were kicking around the ideas, how they landed on like there's a Dead of Night poster,
Actually, the Blue Underground Blu-ray, when you put the film on, that's what shows up as the title. Like when they roll the credits, it's the title is The Dead of Night.
Yeah, so perhaps in what is it, 74, theatrically, that is the name some people saw this movie as. And then Death Dream perhaps came later or was screened in other places as Death Dream. I mean, it's hilarious how movies ran the circuit across America, especially small films. It's almost as if a theater or the distributor didn't like the title, they gave it their own just for the fuck of it.
Death Dream is definitely a sicker title for this movie, though, I think.
Yes. Dead of Night doesn't say anything. What's Dead of Night? Like, I mean, it's kind of cool, but Death Dream is cooler. However, that title, if you really think about it, doesn't also completely say much here because what's with the dream? This movie is not about dreams. It's not about. There's no Freddy Krueger-esque moments in this movie.
No, but it's funny, man. Like I've seen this movie maybe 3 times over the course of the years. Obviously I watched it again for the show, but this is a movie that has stayed with me, man. Like it's such a heavy film, and it's almost like because it has basically this movie is like a riff on the Monkey's Paw, like that W.W. Jacobs short story, where you have these wishes, and someone wishes someone to return from the dead, and they come back like different than what they were in life. In the Monkey's Paw, it's like this mutilated person comes back, and like this is kind of a riff on that. So, in some ways, I read it as being like that his death was like this dream, and I don't, you know what I mean? It's like it's kind of like this like more esoteric, I guess, like. Read on the title, and I always thought that the title kind of resonated a little bit that way.
Okay, I get that. The other thing about this movie is that there's a bit of an anti-violence, anti-war vibe, right? Would you say to this? I mean, it's not. I mean, it's not a huge part of the movie. It's a part of the story. Andy Brooks is a soldier in Vietnam who in 1972, while the war is still going on, is basically shot and allegedly killed during the war. And he comes back home, and then there's this whole thing about how, the mother says not everyone gets to come back home. But apparently before he was shipped off, he made this promise to his mother that he would come back. And Mom's a little nutty. Let's just get it out there. And you hear her voice as he gets shot at the very beginning of the movie saying, Andy, you'll come back. You've got to. You promised. And I guess that kind of sets everything in motion because lo and behold, listeners, Andy does, surprise, surprise, come back home, even though he has been killed in combat. Right, Mike?
Yeah, and there's even a scene where the guy from the military comes and tells their family that he was killed in action.
Yeah, back in the day, listeners, this was a real thing. If you were killed in combat, they would the army or whatever service you served in a representative of that service would come to your home or your parents' home or whatever and inform your family that you were gone. So that was something that actually really happened, Michael.
How do they do that now? They just like text you or something like that?
That's a good. It could be an email. It could be a tweet.
Man.
It could be a DM.
That sucks.
But you know what? I don't know how they do it now. Who the hell knows, Mike? They could still do a version of that now, like that. How about that? Who knows? I don't know. Luckily, none of my friends have died in combat, and I would gather none of yours friends have died.
No, I don't know anyone who was killed in combat. No.
So I don't know how they currently notify, but that is definitely how they did it back in the day in Vietnam. So yeah, there was some truth to that scene. So yeah, the family is notified that Andy has been killed, and the mother is a wreck. But the mother kind of doesn't believe it. Like the sister and the father have kind of resigned to that it's happening, and they're sad and they're crying or whatever. They're upset. But the mom just gets real erratic. And it's like, no, he's not. He's alive. And you know what I'm saying? Which again makes you just think about that very, very beginning scene where you hear her voice after he's been shot saying, you promise and you're going to come back. And what's funny is for like a moment there as I was watching the movie, I kind of forgot about that, Mike. Like I forgot about that, her moment in the beginning of the movie. So I guess listeners, you kind of need to really pay attention to that because it's kind of important, right?
Yeah. And also the thing about this movie too, which kind of gets under your skin, is also it's like the family drama element of it, where it's like, you know how like parents and their children, the love of the parents and the children, it's like they will tell themselves that certain things are not real. Like they'll go into this delusional world,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've seen it in real life where like maybe there's like one of the kids is like on drugs or something, and the mom refuses to believe it, and that's the feel.
Right.
It's like this very realistic thing where the mother's delusional, the dad's like accepting of it because the dad was also a vet, and then the sister is kind of
too, yeah.
It's like such an interesting dynamic in there, and this movie really digs into the family dynamics, which I've found very, very heartbreaking actually in this movie.
It's kind of like when there's a family, it's in real life, and the son or daughter's a piece of crap, and the mother or father refuses to believe that their child's a piece of crap. You're right, exactly. It's like that.
Yeah,
or that they're like an arch criminal, or that they're a drug addict.
Yeah, it's that same vibe, except that in this case, Andy's just a guy who got killed in action, and then, he comes back. He just shows up again one day, whole and not dead.
Yeah, he arrives late that night, after that same night that they've been informed that he's dead, via the service representative. But he's very like Stepford, right? Robotic kind of. He's not like his normal self, although we don't really see the pre-version of him at all, really.
No.
But the father notices right away, and the sister kind of notices that this is not really Andy. Like, what's up? But of course, mom, no, everything's fine and everything's great, and right, and what's interesting is how he made it back home. He gets picked up by a truck driver. He hitchhikes, as many people did in the 70s. Listeners, no one really does that now. That's something from the 70s, never making a comeback, hitchhiking. And of course, that truck driver gets killed by Andy. And it's kind of like there's a vampire angle to this movie, Michael. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what I was picking up too. Like, it's not like a traditional vampire where he can't come out at, he can only come out at night, but he's like drinking blood, basically.
He's essentially drinking blood, but it's kind of a combo vampire zombie in a way, because he has come out of a grave, like he's like arisen from the dead, and in order to regenerate, like kind of Hellraiser style, he has to like eat a dude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And drink the blood. So it is kind of a literal combo zombie vampire, which is interesting.
Yes, definitely.
It's a little bit of both, folks. So you got two horror tropes going on here in your fun 70s film. So yeah, Andy just kind of like sits in his room and doesn't say much, and he loves the rocking chair, and he kind of rocks back and forth. And again, mom is completely thinking everything is fine. The dad is like, what the fuck is going on with my son, right?
Actually, there's one thing that when the night that he comes back, which were the father is like, the military says that he was dead, and then Andy was like, I was,
yes.
and they think he's a joke, but it's totally like serious.
Yes, he was dead serious, and they all laugh at him. And it is the most bizarre laugh sequence I think I've ever seen in film. Would you agree?
Real disturbing. It goes on for like just a little too long, and the angles are all weird, and it's just fucking uncomfortable. It's like very effective.
Dude, Bob Clark was fucking great. It was just for listeners who've never seen it. You're in for a treat during the laugh scene, is what I refer to it as. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what we're talking about. It is a very creepy, long, uncomfortable moment in the film. Another very creepy and uncomfortable moment in the film is one of my least favorite things in a horror movie, and that is the death of a dog.
Yes. Yeah.
Even though I am going to assume it was not a real dog, although it was the 70s, and who the fuck knows, unfortunately. We'll never know. I'm going to say Bob Clark was not a vicious animal like Deodato was, and I'm going to say that it was probably a fake dog. However, there is a real dog in the movie. I'm just hoping the scene where it is choked to death is a fake dog, and I'm going to say it was a fake dog, just to make myself feel better. But man, I fucking hate when that happens in a movie, Mike.
I don't like when animals get killed either. For sure, I don't.
Me, the worst. Like that first John Wick. I hate that. Speaking of John Wick, I need to see John Wick 2, 3, and 4, Michael.
Oh, they're good, man. Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah. Little side note: I have not seen any of them other than the first one. So you've learned something new about one of your co-hosts tonight. So yeah, he kills the dog, like, just because the dog is like barking at him while these kids from the neighborhood who haven't seen him in years because he's been in Vietnam, are coming over to him and saying, hey, how you doing? And I was the war, and look, I know karate now. Like, these typical, 70s kids from the neighborhood, right, Mike?
Yeah, and he kind of abuses the one that said he knew karate. He gets him in some sort of hold,
Yes. And then the dog comes over and barks, and he just grabs the dog, and he fucking kills it. And of course, it's funny. The dad, learns about the dog, but the dad initially doesn't even tell the mother or the sister about the dog right away, right?
Yeah, and that's the dad is the first one to catch on to what's going on with
Yes.
Andy, and it's the same shit as that goes on in like a family. Like, there might be something wrong with the son, and the dad keeps it from the mother, and then there's tension. You know what I mean? It's like the family dynamics in this film are very realistic, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that it has that, again, that kind of 70s drama to it vibe going on, mixed in with the horror. I mean, it's definitely a horror film. There are violent scenes in it, but it's also a fairly effective, family drama where one parent is completely in denial about the activities of one of the children, Mike.
Yeah, and the mother is like off, and that's the thing too. It's like the mother. I mean, if you just for a second think about a war, and they take your son and he gets drafted, and they send him overseas to fight. Like that would fucking crush a lot of people. Like, if that was you know what I mean? Like, of course the mother's like, out of her mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, look, it did crush thousands of families in America in the late 60s and 70s. Many who went to Vietnam did not make it home, and it definitely touches on that in this movie. And again, the other thing it touches on is what you are when you do come home.
Yeah.
So Bob Clark he's got a couple of things going on here, which again, the sign of a guy who can write a good movie and a good story, and just a fucking masterful director, in my opinion, of genre films. Bob Clark, straight up.
Yeah, in this case, the guy comes back and he's literally a monster.
Oh yeah,
an undead monster. Yeah.
Yes. So it's funny, like, children shouldn't play with dead things. You've got, I guess, again, the post-Romero new horror zombie thing going on with his own humorous touch on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, like a little bit of a post-Manson thing going on. But this movie focuses on another topic of the day, which, to me, the Vietnam War and what you're like when you come home and what happens when you don't come home. So yeah, just definitely really fucking cool, man. Cool story, different, and you're getting a little ahead here. Sure enough, this movie was also apparently about to get a remake, but it fell through the cracks, unfortunately. Could you see this being remade?
I could see it, but I don't know if I necessarily want it to be remade.
Right. I think Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things is a way more interesting remake idea than this movie, actually.
Because like a lot of what this film really relies on is the time and place. Like it's a period piece in some ways. It's like
exactly.
And I think that the anti-war sentiment is really what makes this film really hit hard.
No, true. Whereas Children, you could update that setting. You know what I'm saying? You could kind of update that setting and change some shit around and still have a pretty fucking solid movie. But yeah, I agree with you on this one. More of a time and place movie, definitely. So the dad is very distraught about the dog. The dad goes to a bar, starts pounding him down.
Yeah, this is like the descent, the beginning of the father's descent, really.
Right. He meets one of his buddies who's a doctor at the bar, and the dad tells the doctor everything that's happened. And the doctor's like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I'm saying? Let's go see him now. Let's go to the house now, and blah, blah, blah. And the doctor questions Andy, right? Because the doctor is already wondering about, the whole hitchhiker thing, which is kind of the talk of the town about who is responsible, because they never learned who killed the hitchhiker, of course. And, the doctor has Andy's number too, right?
Yeah, the doctor realizes something's wrong. I mean, I don't think he surmises that he's some sort of monster, though. You know what I mean? But he's like, yeah.
No, he doesn't know. He just knows that Andy might be responsible for a murder, though. And he doesn't know that he's like an undead zombie demon vampire.
And I don't know if even back then they really did much for guys coming back from war, as far as like PTSD being a thing. Like that was before all that, I think, right? Honestly,
what they did, like they just put in asylums, bro. Like there wasn't really? It was not fun. It was kind of like all or nothing. It was either like they did nothing at all, or they overdid it and probably really turned you into a fucking vegetable. Like there was no kind of like clear path to health,
Right.
I feel like that didn't happen in American society until a little later. Although hell, I could be wrong. But I feel like the 70s was a time of, the quote unquote nut house and the insane asylum and, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Shell shock and all that kind of shit, Although that also came into play in World War II in Korea, by the way, that term shell shock. But as far as really treating PTSD, I don't know. I would say it was rather primitive at that point. Yeah. 72, 74, which is sad. Very sad.
Probably.
It was probably treated with drugs and alcohol, Mike.
Yeah. Just you're on your own. You like beat your wife and like abuse people and, get drunk and use drugs.
Yeah. Yeah. And everything goes down the toilet. So yeah. The doctor is, obviously sees that something wrong. And the doctor then tells the dad, hey, your son is the one who killed that truck driver. We need to get the police involved, okay? Later on, Andy visits the doctor at his own home in the middle of the night, demanding a checkup. And then, of course, the doctor realizes that he has no pulse or heartbeat. And then Andy says the line, "I died for you, Doc. Why shouldn't you return the favor?" And he kills the doctor with a syringe. And then we see he injects the doctor's blood into his own arm. I think this is really where we see that, like, or the viewer probably sees that, okay, there is some kind of vampirism thing going on. And, you know, I feel like this is kind of new territory for, like, 74, right?
Sure.
This kind of vampirism, no?
Yeah, it's like once again, it's just like a different take on it, you know?
Yeah. The only thing that springs to mind a little bit is, I'm going to say his name again, George Romero's Martin.
Yeah, I was thinking Martin too, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
but the implication is almost like his body is just probably falling apart, and he needs like vitality injected into it. That's where he actually needs literally blood in his body. You know what I'm trying to say?
Right. Exactly.
Because
exactly.
Andy at this part too is starting to degenerate too. Like his body's failing.
Yes, he is. He
starting to fall apart, you know.
They decide that Andy's going to go on a double date with his sister and their respective love interests, which is the worst idea ever, listeners. By the way,
that part was so like it was heartbreaking too. That scene, that whole segment of the movie too, and also funny because there's one really funny part in it, you know.
Yes, because we have one of the lovely actresses brought over from Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things in Jane Daly as his quote girlfriend or whatever.
Right.
Who again, she's like happy to see that her beau has made it home from fucking Vietnam. And what do they call it? The sister is played by Anya Ormsby, who was more the mental case in Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. But she's quite even-keeled as the sister, although, I believe she sees, obviously, her brother is fucked up, too.
And then the outfit that he has on, like,
oh, boy, dude, yeah.
When he comes down the stairs, he's got these, like, first of all, he looks like he's like the singer in like Death Heaven or something like that when he comes down the stairs. He's got like,
and it's like Florida and it's hot and it's like this dude is wearing like God knows what. Right. Yeah.
He's got like black leather gloves on and like these like shades and like a long sleeve shirt. And, and Richard Backus has cool hair. He's got like this cool like haircut too, you know.
And he's got like that 70s model look kind of.
Yeah, good looking
right?
guy.
You know, right.
Handsome guy, you know.
Right.
He looks like he could be in like New Order or something, you know what I mean, when he comes down the stairs.
Yeah. Or guest spot on a Brady Bunch episode as, Marsha's love interest, perhaps, something like that.
Right.
So they go on a double date to a drive-in. And of course, it all goes to fucking hell because Andy starts like melting in the back seat, right, Mike?
He's just falling apart, man. And once again, it's the same kind of thing with like his girlfriend from before the war, and he's distant, and he didn't go see her right away. And it's like you hear stories like that, where a guy comes back from combat and he doesn't know how to connect with people anymore, and in this case, he comes back, he's literally a monster and he's dangerous, and like some of these guys that come back from war are dangerous. You know what I mean?
No, totally. His sister and her boyfriend go to get some popcorn and soda. And unfortunately, while they do that, Andy decides to attack and kill Joni, his girlfriend. And when the sister and boyfriend come back, all they see is basically like Andy on top of her, and they think that they're making out or whatever. And it turns out that is not what is going on in the back seat, to say the least. Andy gets up and starts, going to town on his sister and the boyfriend, and everything kind of goes to hell, right?
I didn't like that he killed his girlfriend. I didn't want to see her die. I liked her. I didn't want her to die.
He kills Bob, the boyfriend, and then he tries to run over his sister with a car. That was a pretty fucked up scene in the drive-in parking lot or whatever. He does manage to run over a patron of the parking lot, which is quite a brutal scene.
Yeah, definitely a brutal scene. And this whole car chase thing on the Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things Blu-ray, there's an extra on there which actually talks about Bob Clark's career, and they talk about the stunt work in this car chase with the fire and flames and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, a car chase ensues with the police. But, Andy actually manages to make it home, and his dad is there, and his dad's a mess, and his dad kills himself because the son comes in the door. He's like a bloody zombie vampire mess. When the dad sees that, he's just like, fuck all this, and he sadly kills himself. But, of course, the mom is standing by the son, and, he gets into a car chase with the police, and the police chase him to a graveyard. The same graveyard where we see him in the film at some point spending some time there, and he writes something on a headstone at one point that we do not see until this very end of the film, and it turns out he writes his birth date on it, and that particular day in whatever 1972, I guess his death day, because he knows that this is the end of the line for him, and he gets into his own kind of his own grave, so to speak. And the cops come and they basically see this kind of like mess, decaying body in the grave, and that's this, creepy explosion because you hear the car exploding in the background, and the mother is trying to cover up her son with the dirt. Pretty fucking sick ending.
Very sad, very heartbreaking, and it's like the kind of thing it stays with you, man. This is one of those movies that affected me when I first saw it a long time ago. Similar to The Other. Remember that movie, The Other?
Yeah, that's a cool movie.
Yeah, very. I don't like to think about The Other, and same thing with Death Dream. Like, I like the movie a lot, but I just don't like to think about it because it makes me very sad.
Yeah, and the mother, the final line of the film is spoken by the mom while she's putting the dirt on him, saying, "Andy's home. Some boys never come home," which is total, Vietnam, anti-Vietnam moment, I feel like, right?
Yeah, and hey, he came home, and it's like one of those things where it's like, was it, you kind of leaves you questioning. It's like, well, was it, worth having that version of him around, or would it have been better for him to be, to have stayed dead, that monkey's paw thing,
Yeah, now look, to me, like on the negative side, the fact that we kind of just, we literally there's literally no reason for him to be back from the dead. There's no real explanation other than the mom, at the very beginning, but it's not like there's no seance. There's no, you know what I'm saying? It's very like your suspension of disbelief needs to be there. Not a lot is explained. It's just kind of, he's back because the mom wanted him back,
Yeah, it's not like she was into witchcraft or something like that, or like worship Satan, where it's, there was some, devilry that goes on to have him come back to life, So,
right.
That's my criticism as well. Definitely.
But it's not a good thing. Like, I guess I was a little conflicted for myself. Is that a good thing or not? Does it need an explanation? I kind of feel like it needs at least a base minimal explanation.
A minimal one, because there's none. There's like literally nothing to go on except that she wanted him, he promised her that he would come back, and he did, but this fucked up version of himself. Like, even in the Monkey's Paw, the short story, there's a fucking monkey's paw, that gives you wishes. There was nothing like that in this movie, which I think that's like the only thing I really have an issue with. But I overlook it, and I still really think this is a great movie, though.
Right. It's basically based on a wish, and that is what the mother's wish was. And that's basically it. It's a wish, It was a verbal, spoken out loud wish, unfortunately, and mom got her wish. And, sometimes you got to be careful what you wish for, as they say, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what the moral of this story is,
Interesting review from DVD Talk. The reason Death Dream works is that it's superior dramatic staging. The actors are excellent, especially John Marley and Lynn Carlin, both honored for their role in the John Cassavetes film Faces. Clark stages the domestic scenes with a fine simplicity, and what we remember the most are the looks of bewilderment on nicely framed faces. Yeah, we talked about how it works as a drama, and the acting is really good, actually, I have to say. Death Dream, the second collaboration between Bob Clark and Alan Ormsby, is a marked artistic and technical leap forward from the pair's overrated debut feature, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things.
Nah, I don't think that's overrated. I think that's a great movie.
I don't think it's overrated, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's underrated.
Exactly. No one knows about the movie, so how the hell could it be overrated?
It's an underrated film. This movie is an improvement over it, though, from a technical standpoint, right, and from an overall film standpoint. Of course, this is an improvement. It's 2 years later. They've got some other shit under their belt, right? A little bit about the remake that never happened. In August 2003, Oliver Hudson and John Stolberg purchased the remake rights for this film and actually optioned for Eli Roth to direct it.
Oh, I'm glad that didn't happen.
In February 2006, Dark Lot Entertainment required the rights. In December of that year, they said that there would be a remake of Death Dream. By June of 2008, financing falls through. There's another person attached to it in 2010. By the end of that year, there's no word on it, and then there were no further updates past 2010. So, yeah, no remakes. Several attempts, though, in the O's to remake this film, but alas, it did not happen. I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. As far as our Necromaniacs score, Michael, what do you give Death Dream?
I give it a 4.5, man. I love both of these films. I love his triumvirate of horror films. Black Christmas. They're like, it's the finest movies, I think, in the genre. This one particularly, I thought was very emotional for me. There's something about the family stuff that really got under my skin. And one of the criticisms that someone made about this was the acting, like the overwrought acting. And I don't believe that to be true. I think that the family acting was great. I think the guy who played Andy, Richard Backus, I think he was awesome. I think he was perfect in that role. Some of the townsfolk, like they have like the kind of regular people acting, was like over the top, but in a weird way, it reminded me of like some Twin Peaks style scenes.
Yes,
there was like
that's a good comparison, Twin Peaks style.
Like the townspeople,
that vibe.
Like the people in the diner, like the truck driver, like they're very much salt of the earth, like American, Twin Peaks types,
Yes, I agree with you on everything, except I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. I think I like Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things a little more than this one. I did enjoy the hell out of this one. Don't know how much I'm going to rewatch this one, but it is very good. I would say it is essential 70s horror. If you're a fan of 70s horror, you should see this movie. And I think everyone should see as many Bob Clark films as possible. So very solid 4 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, I have this on Blu-ray, actually. This movie.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I love this movie.
According to the notes here on Wikipedia, there's an interview with Richard Backus. I would kind of like to see that at least. See his thoughts on the movie.
Yeah, the daytime drama star Richard Backus.
Yeah, man, these must have been fun movies to make. When you're in your 20s and you're making movies with your buddies, and you got similar cast people coming back. I mean, that's a cool vibe, man. Like Raimi did shit like this, and other directors obviously have done it as well. Tobe Hooper did a movie with people he knew from college and friends, and I just love hearing these kind of stories come out of like the 70s and 80s.
Alan Ormsby looks like he'd be a cool guy to hang out with, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, he's still alive. I would fucking love to meet that guy. Yeah,
he just seems like a fun dude. I don't know, like one of these quirky, like fun sort of guys.
Totally. He had a very minor role in this. He was like an onlooker or something. He's like barely in.
Cameo. Yeah.
Exactly. But blink if you you'll miss it. You blink kind of moment. But yeah, man. Bob Clark is getting up there with his Necromaniac coverage, huh?
Yeah, he's definitely one of the guys that we're he's one of those filmmakers. He's a Necromaniacs filmmaker. He's a guy that we revere him. And there's a list of other filmmakers that are like that too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to Evil Dead. Maybe I'll try to sneak it in this weekend.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to cover it on the show, folks. So don't you worry about that.
I'm definitely going to see it this weekend. I'm not sure when though. Like Friday night is the Joe Bob, drive-in. So I'm not going to.
Yes, that's right.
Friday's normally the night I go when I go see films. I go to that late show at the AMC over here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to be watching Joe Bob. Saturday might be a little iffy unless I go to like an early show because I don't want to be there with all these teenagers, And that's definitely going to be a movie. It's not going to be like Ennis, Maine, where there's like 3 people in the theater, or like Skinamarink or something like that. It's going to be like,
yeah, I know. No, it's going to do well.
Yeah,
it's going to do well. So it won't be a dead theater. No,
yeah,
I doubt it.
I might go to the matinee or something Saturday, and maybe it won't be that many people there.
Awesome. All right, listeners, thank you for sticking around and all the years of support. We thank the new listeners, the old listeners. You're all equally important, right, Mike Hill?
That's right, man. And definitely continue with the voicemails. It's a lot of fun, man. I like to hear from everybody. And that number, once again, 908-913-0782. We should probably put that on an Instagram post at some point.
Yeah, definitely. We should do that.
Yeah.
And if you have some comments or questions, hit us up on the Instagram or Facebook. And if you are an Apple listener, leave us one of those fun reviews. Hit that 5-star button,
That's right.
Yeah. We will see you all next time. And again, thank you so much for checking out Necromaniacs Podcast.
We'll talk to you next week, guys. Take care.
Cheers.